Welcome back, everybody. This is episode number 13 of the SammyGuru podcast. My name is Jeff Springer, and with me, as always, my co-host, Tori. Tori, say hi.
Hey, how's it going?
And you guys can see over Tori's shoulder over here in the background, that are watching the video anyway, you can see the SammyGuru with Jeff Springer sign. We promised a custom sign, and there it is. If you guys follow me over on X, probably saw it earlier this week. I posted it over there so you guys get a little sneak peek. It's made of a complete, solid wood, made here in the U.S. in California. I had a company named Plank Signs make it, so just a shout out to them. I think they did a really, really good job, honestly, on the sign. So if anybody needs a custom sign, like for your business or anything, I would highly recommend them. I'm actually thinking about this one's going to go in the backdrop of the podcast. We haven't mounted it yet, so it's only been here a couple days, and I've been busy covering update stuff this week, but we're going to get it mounted next week. I've thought about getting one for the main YouTube studio area too, to have it in some of my shots where I'm talking in front of the camera. Maybe have one of them in the background too. So we'll see. Really good job though. I was impressed with the quality. You like the sign, Tori?
Oh, I love the sign.
I shared that with the SammyGuru team also on Slack. I think most people on the team seem to like the sign overall. So I think it's pretty
good design.
Pretty solid investment. What have you been up to this week, Tori?
It has been a very busy week at the high school. Grades were due this week, so that's what I was really busy trying to do before I got here. But I did finish on time. Still got a few more things to do over the weekend, but it's been a pretty busy week, mostly overall at the school.
Are these progress report grades? Is that
yeah. So because we do progress every 3 weeks.
It's not the end of the quarter, right?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. So the next one is going to be the report card.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just progress
So
report.
so I this morning, I forgot to mention that. This morning, I went to Jonathan's first parent-teacher conference at his school, at the private school. They do them every 5 weeks for the younger kids to check in on their progress. So me and Nicole kind of met with his teacher. He got a great report. So that's one of the reasons why we took him to the museum. We told him if he had a great report from the teacher, and he did, that we would take him. He loves to go to Natural History Museum in Mesa because he likes dinosaurs, and that's the place to go if you're a dinosaur fan. So that's what I was doing most of today. Took most of the day off to do that. Ran around the valley, made a huge loop all the way from Mesa back to my house in Northern Valley, back to the office in the center of Phoenix, and then drive home a little bit after the podcast. But hey, this is what we do because we love you guys. That's why I'm here. I made the drive back down here.
Oh, yeah.
For the love of the game. That's why. But really proud of Jonathan. So that's really awesome that he's doing well, everything academically, and also kind of just getting used to the routine of being in school. Because a lot of younger kids have a hard time sitting and stuff like that. And since he was at home with us, he didn't go to preschool or daycare or anything. He's always been home with us. We were, want to make sure he's settled in, and it seems like he is. So really happy about that. Next week, we're going to see Transformers. We're taking Jonathan. Tori and I are taking my son to see the new Transformers 1, the animated Transformers. Even though it's animated, it looks really good, honestly. I've seen the trailers. I think if you're a Transformers fan of the real live action movies, you probably would like Transformers 1 as well. I've seen a lot of adults talking about it who are fans of Transformers, and it looks like something that should be a pretty good movie for both kids and adults. I think so. That should be pretty fun. We saw Beetlejuice last weekend. Yeah, we did. Second one, but I won't do any spoilers in case you haven't seen it. It was pretty good, though, overall. Yeah. I thought some of it could have been a little funnier. It wasn't as funny, I think, as the original movie, maybe. But, I mean, it's always hard to, you can't top a classic. I mean, the second one, the only one that I would say that ever really got close for me is, Back to the Future 2. I thought it's actually better than Back to the Future 1, honestly. That was one of the few sequels that I ever saw where I was like, that is definitively better, in my opinion, anyway, than the first one. Now, the first one's still good. But usually, with the sequel, you don't expect it to be way better. But it was really good, for sure. I encourage you, if you like the original Beetlejuice, you should see it. I mean, there's a lot of callbacks to the original movie. And I think also, the plot is a little similar to the original one. But there's some Easter eggs throughout the plot and, a few surprises. So I would say, if you like comedy/horror genre and you like the first one, then it's probably a good idea to go check it out.
Yeah, same.
So let's go ahead and jump into the news. It was an eventful week, and of course, the elephant in the room, the second half of the show today, after we talk about all the Samsung stuff, because this is a Samsung podcast, we are going to talk about the iPhone 16 event a little bit, because, they are the main competition here for Samsung in the U.S., and I think even though I don't want to become an Apple website in any sense ever. I never will. That's a promise. We should stop about the competition because I think it's fair to talk about the competition. A lot of other Android sites out there, which I really hate, you know, in the last few years, they've started like covering Apple stuff too, just because they want to get clicks. We won't ever do that. I promise you that. I'll quit doing this before I start just like putting up Apple content. This is SammyGuru. You'll see comparisons. You might see some critiques of Apple and you know how they compare to Samsung in terms of competition and what maybe Samsung could learn. But you're not going to see me covering like get your Apple iPhone here, click on my link to buy your iPhone, or buy your Apple cases from SammyGuru. We're not doing that. I mean, other people got to make their money. I get it, but that's not my monetization strategy. I do a lot of things to make money to keep the website alive, but that's not one of them. So just that's a promise. Going through the news here that I put together from the stuff we covered on the website this week, we've got the Galaxy S25 here. Sorry, I had to go away to kind of click on this. Galaxy S25 first leaks are here. So these are their official renders, and I wrote this story up. This is another exclusive between Android headlines and OnLeaks. We saw last week they had an exclusive on the Galaxy Z Fold Special Edition. They're paying out a lot of money to OnLeaks for these exclusive renders. And I guess I got to get on like paying people some money to get some exclusives, like I said last week.
I guess so.
But take a look here at the renders, Tori. This is the base model of the Galaxy S25. So we're not talking about the Ultra. And in fact, they did get an exclusive on the Ultra too, and we'll look at that. But there's not really any surprises there that we don't already know about in terms of the Ultra. It looks pretty much like what Ice Universe said. There's a few like variations which we can talk about. But I mean, this one looks kind of just like the Galaxy S24, except if you notice here on the back, these camera rings, they look like the camera rings on the Galaxy Z Fold 6. So like they've taken the Galaxy Z Fold 6 camera ring design and copy pasted it over. I don't know. I mean, it looks pretty elegant. In fact, if you look,
it looks really nice and simple.
It
looks simple.
I like it. If you look here, though, there was one breaking story that we covered after I made the podcast show notes. If you look over and take a look at this article, Ice Universe, he basically came out and owned OnLeaks. You know, they're all leakers. They like to go back and forth. They've got like a leaking war going on. And so OnLeaks, you know, he gave this exclusive to Android headlines. But then Ice Universe came on last night on Twitter and he said, well, those leaks are okay, but there's one problem with them. The bezels aren't thin enough. The real bezels are this thin. And so if you look at this image right here, you see this is the photo on the right. This is the one that Ice Universe says is really the true bezel size versus on the left is what OnLeaks put out to Android headlines. And you can see there is obviously a very big visual difference. There's a huge like reduction in the bezel sizes. I mean, I would much prefer obviously the right versus the left because it just looks more pleasing. And the bezels, the one thing I think, I know Ice Universe loves this because he talks about it like all the time. It's one of his most favorite topics is he likes to talk about uniform bezels, which means they're all symmetric. Like you don't have a fatter bezel at the top versus on the side. These look a lot more symmetrical. On past Samsung phones, there's been the case where like the top and the bottom bezel would be one thickness and then the side bezels would be one thickness. And then that ends up being, you know, kind of weird. It's kind of weird when you have like different, it doesn't look pleasing. I mean, it doesn't necessarily make the phone perform poorly or anything like that, but it just doesn't look as good. So, I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with this. I will say, though, you know, if you go back to the base Galaxy S25 and you look at the camera rings, I don't think the Z Fold 6 camera rings look as good on here as the camera rings that were on the S24. I mean, check it out. I have the S24 Ultra right here. The camera ring design looks the same on the base model and the Ultra. So look at these. They look more elegant. Like you see how the metal around them versus like the textured doesn't look as premium in my opinion. I really prefer these. Like the camera rings on the Ultra, these are the same ones that are on the base Galaxy S24. I don't know. I mean, that doesn't seem like an upgrade to me. It doesn't look as premium. It actually looks a little cheaper in my opinion. I would prefer they not have done it on the Z Fold model as well, but I definitely don't like it on the S line. What do you think, Tori?
For me overall, just kind of looking at it, what I like about the back is that it does look very simple, but looking at the rings, is like you have this simple design in the back, but then like the rings just kind of look like a little bit out of place. But what I do really like is the just like the curvature of the phone, because like we don't have the straight edges. Like that just looks really nice from the back.
Yeah. So
Also from the
apparently
front.
this is going to be basically flat now, mostly flat. And the other thing that you can't really see from this view, but if you look from the side view of this image down here that Android Headlines had for the render, this particular one, like you can see, like, and here too, like you can see that this looks like very, very thin, and it is very thin.
It does.
I think it's like 7.6. Let me click back to the article and I'll tell you guys. I believe there's so many different there's so many different specs that I have to memorize from all these different phones leaking out. But yeah, it looks like it's 7.2 millimeters thin. I wrote this article, Samit did, and I wrote this one, so I should know. But like I said, there's so many different things. 7.2 millimeters is insanely thin.
Right.
This is the thinnest, and I think I did some research when I wrote this. This is the thinnest one that Samsung's put out since the Galaxy S6. But I think back to that phone, and I mentioned this in my article, it's back to the Galaxy S6 Edge, which was the one that had that's when Samsung first did like the really dramatic curve on the sides, both sides. That phone was almost too thin for me. It felt a little sharp in the hand, and maybe a little not as like solid because it's so thin. Thinness is good until like it seems fragile. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Like what is the thickness of the S22? I really like even like without a case, it feels really nice to.
I think the S22 Ultra and the S24 Ultra are similar, and they've got it's pretty much quite a bit more than this. It's 8.9 millimeters, so that's 1.7 millimeters thinner. That's almost 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters is a lot when you're talking about phone width. I mean, that's going to make a big difference in the hand.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. I mean, since they're doing the flat, like looking like sides and the top of the display, it might be okay. Because if I think back to the S6 and the S6 Edge, the reason the S6 Edge I think was so sharp is because it was their first time doing curved displays. And because they curved it like so much, like the S6 Edge had a huge curve. I mean, they went to the extreme with that phone because they were trying to emphasize, here's the thing we can do. We can make curved glass now. It was like the first time anyone had ever done it.
Yeah, that hooked me onto it. That's why I wanted to get the phone.
But it wasn't really necessarily the right decision because they only left like a little tiny sliver of a metal frame. And so because it was just a little metal frame, it was like when you held it and like in your hand, it was like poking your hand. It was like, pretty sharp feeling. They're not going to have that this time because obviously this is not super curved. It's not curved glass. Yeah. So you might have enough frame and maybe it won't be a problem. Samsung has also come a long way in terms of their build quality and industrial design in the last 10 years. It's been 10 years since then, basically. I don't think it'll be a problem, but I was just thinking about reflecting on those phones. Those are actually the first two phones that I covered on YouTube. It's been over 10 years, so those are the first two I covered. So I spent a lot of time with those phones since back then, no one was sending me phones, and I didn't have the budget to buy every phone that came out like I do now, basically. Back then, I had those phones, and that was it. I was just making videos on those phones, case videos, everything I could find about just the S6 and the S6 Edge. I bought those two phones, and that was all that I had like for the year. I couldn't afford anything else, so I just made a bunch of content on them. So we'll see. I mean, I like the design overall. I don't like camera rings. I wish they would reconsider that. I mean, I don't think at this point, unfortunately, at this point, it pretty much is what it is because by November, the phones will introduce, mass production in the factories to be ready for a January shipment because, when you're shipping obviously millions, tens of millions of phones, you can't just do it like a week before the announcement. You've got to start like 2.5, 3 months ahead of time. So the design pretty much has to be finalized, I imagine, at this point in order for you to ship it. So I don't think it really matters what we say, but I'm not a huge fan of that. I mean, once you slap the case on it, you don't notice it that much, honestly. So if you're a case person, which I am, I mean, it won't matter too much if you get the Galaxy S25, the regular one, should still be fine. And then here's a picture, render another one of the Galaxy S25 Ultra. There it is with the thin bezels and the S Pen next to the Galaxy S25. And it looks good. The S25 Ultra looks amazingly nice. We don't know yet if the camera design on the back is going to match that of the Galaxy S25 regular, but I would assume is, probably.
Yeah,
It seems like from OnLeaks renders that is the case. You would think that they usually match the camera ring design among all of them because they try to keep the design language very similar. But overall, I mean, I think the S25 Ultra is shaping up to be a pretty nice overall upgrade. I mean, I know a lot of people are saying, well, they're not doing anything, but if you look at what they did compared to what Apple did in their last event, which we're going to talk about in the second half of the show, they're actually doing a lot of things. Apple did, you got to talk about doing nothing. I mean, aside from just like adding a new processor and like a couple new camera features, and that's the end of it, Apple did almost nothing. So, I mean, Samsung's at least trying. They're not keeping the design exactly stagnant. They're trying to appeal to the little things that their user base wants, like slimmer bezels, the rounded corners, but not fully rounded because some people like the square. They're trying to find the sweet spot. Like they're at least trying to iterate on the design. You know, Apple's put out basically the same exact slab of like industrial metal the last 4 years with no real refinements, which, you know, there are definitely some things the iPhone could use, in my opinion. While the dynamic island is okay, it doesn't look good compared to the punch hole on the S24 Ultra. Like this little punch hole at the top is way less obtrusive than the dynamic island. I don't like, I mean, obviously I have an iPhone and I ordered an iPhone for comparison, which, like I said, we'll talk about in the second half. But I mean, I just don't like the way the dynamic island looks. That's just me personally. So let's see what else we got. Let's go down to the next story. One UI 6.1, bad news for Samsung Smart Select fans. And this is one that I covered just now on YouTube. I posted a video a little bit earlier as well. So One UI 6.1.1 started rolling out last week. We spent a lot of time talking about it.
Yeah.
I said once we talk to you guys again, a lot of people should have it. It rolled out to all the Galaxy S24s in the US. I have it on here. It has started rolling out to the S23s, Z Fold 5, and Z Flip 5 as of yesterday. However, bad news for people in the US, it's not here yet. It's in Korea, and I really haven't seen it anywhere outside of Korea. So our European listeners, and we do have some, so shout out to you guys in Europe. I see the statistics of where we have listeners from and the podcast hosts that we have, or where people listen from. We got a decent little European audience. So we got like 20 or 30 people listening from Europe. So I don't think anyone in Europe has it yet either. So if you have an S23 or Fold 5, Flip 5, let me know. But while One UI 6.1.1 introduced a lot of great features, it also removed some features. And one of the features that people are just absolutely livid about being removed is Samsung removed the GIF creator, or GIF, whichever one you like. I like GIF.
Yeah,
but some people like GIF.
Too.
I mean, I like GIF too. Peanut butter, because choosy moms choose GIF. But I choose GIF when I'm talking about animated short clips of video. But hey, I mean, I like GIF and GIF. Just the peanut butter, you know, it is what it is. So, but anyway, there used to be the ability in One UI 6.1, so before this update, to have an edge panel. And I don't know if you've ever used the edge panels. The edge panels live over here on the side, Tori.
Oh yeah, no, I use it all the time. That's like one of my favorite things. That's why I want it.
So actually, if you go on your phone, and you go into the edge panel settings, like if you actually click into the settings for the edge panel, like there's a little settings cog. Oh, if you look at all these little panels right here, there used to be one called Smart Select, so it should be on your phone. Okay. There should be one called Smart Select. If you go hit the settings cog right there, this? And then scroll through, and you'll see one called Smart Select. Okay. Oh yeah, I see it. So if you choose that, you'll notice that there's this option. It's not on mine. It's been removed in the One UI 6.1.1 update. There's an option called animation. And so what that option used to allow you to do is you could have a video playing on the screen, like a YouTube video, and you could just tap on animation, and it would intelligently know like where the video was if you had it in picture or whatever. Yeah. And it would record up to 15 seconds, however long you wanted, up to 15 seconds, and immediately turn that into a GIF that you could then share to social media. So people love this because a lot of times you don't have to go to an actual video editing app to go ahead and create a GIF. This was a lot faster. So people who like to share GIFs and create them not only for social media, but for their messaging and whatever with friends, they like this tool a lot. And it was useful. And Samsung, for some reason, removed it entirely. So not only is GIF Maker gone, the animation tool, they also took away the entire Smart Select panel from the Edge panel. What they did is they replaced it with a new Smart Select which is this icon right here. It's this blue icon.
Yeah.
It's the Galaxy AI Enhanced Smart Select.
Oh.
So now, instead of you selecting a portion of the screen manually, if you just tap on something, it'll try to figure out like what it is you want using AI. Oh. But you can also like circle something if you want. Mm-hmm. However, no more animation tool. So nowhere in these options down here do you have the option to turn something that's a video on the screen into a GIF. If you have a video on the screen, it'll actually push the video away if you try to use the new Smart Select and basically tell you, no, you can't use it with videos because you can't create GIFs. Now, you can use sketched image, but I think the GIFs are a lot more useful when it comes to Smart Select than sketched image. So a lot of people are super mad about this being gone. All the different
make our GIFs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whichever one you prefer.
Yes.
But I mean, a lot of the YouTubers that create Samsung content, Apex, who I talked before, Saki Tech, who's obviously the biggest Samsung YouTuber, and then myself, we all made videos about this. I did provide a workaround, and there is one. I'm not going to go through the full thing here because it's like 7 or 8 minutes. I do have a video on it. Plus, always be closing. Got to get some more views for the video. So go to the show notes, click on it, and check it out. But I'll tell you the brief idea. If you don't want to watch the video because you are listening to the podcast, I'll give you just a quick summary. If you feel like you're an enthusiast, you can do it quickly. What you can do is you can use the screen recorder app. There's a screen recorder still on your Samsung phone. In fact, just go up to the quick settings, and then you just go through here, and then you'll find the screen recorder. It's up in your quick toggles. Mm-hmm. And if you have your YouTube video playing on the screen, just hit screen recorder and record the screen. And then what you can do is once you hit screen recorder and record the screen, if you go into the gallery, so if you go into the gallery, you could then tap down here in the options on the 3 dots menu. And then down here, there's an option to create a GIF from that. So you can create a GIF using the gallery.
Oh, I see.
Now, the problem is if you only want a part of a clip, like if you want a picture-in-picture YouTube video and you only want a part of it, you're first going to have to use the edit button in here to crop the video because it'll be full screen if you use screen recorder, or you could crop it in the screen recorder. You're still going to have to do a crop somewhere and then use the GIF button. So this is like a 4-step process now.
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot of clicks along the way instead of like with the animation tool and Smart Select, it's just like, boom, choose how long you want to record, hit stop, boom, and then you can immediately share it to social media. There's a share button where you can immediately share it to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, a message, whatever, text message, whatever you want. So people are admittedly and rightfully a little PO'd about this particular feature because they want it back. Now, the good news is, Sumit and I, we're out here doing our reporting, we're doing our due diligence. Samsung has commented on this. I forgot about this because, I cover so much stuff. Sometimes I forget. That's why I'm glad to have Sumit. I'm really glad that he's here and on board. Last month, when the the Z Fold 6 came out back in July and early August, people noticed this on the Fold because, of course, the Fold 6 got One UI 6.1.1 first and the Flip 6. People were upset about it back then. And I had forgotten about it until it came out again for the S series. But Samsung did issue a statement saying that they are going to bring this back. So you don't have to worry. It won't be gone forever. Samsung listens. The GIF animation capture is returning to the Galaxy. So they did issue a statement that this will return. Now the question is, when? They didn't say when. So if you read this article back from August 8th, they did issue a statement saying it was going to come back, but they didn't say when or with what update. We can only guess, probably with the One UI 7.0 update, we will see it come back. So the good news is you can use my workaround to do it the long way for like another few months, and then probably when 7.0 comes out we'll talk about that later. It's delayed. The beta's delayed again, so who knows when. But if it comes out probably by the end of the year for the stable update, I would guess still, Christmas present. You can make your GIFs again using Smart Select. Hopefully they bring back the whole panel because there were a couple other features they removed. They actually removed the oval selection tool. With the new Smart Select, you can't actually get an oval or circular shape. Mm-hmm. No matter where you circle on the screen, it always turns it into like a squircle, like a rounded, or a rectangle that's a rounded rectangle. Mm-hmm. It won't let you do like a circle or a square. And I have to wonder, I was thinking about this, in the back of my mind, I keep thinking about this, and I'm going to make a video about it eventually. Are they gearing up, I think I said this last week, to kill Smart Select in favor of Google's circle to search and like replace it. Because why do you think they got rid of the oval and circle? Because what is Google call their tool that does this? Circle to search. So they're trying to distinguish between Smart Select and circle to search. They're trying to make a case for why these are both like useful, because they're trying to show you that they're not really different, but they're trying to show you that they're different. Because circle to search lets you share screenshots and stuff too, just like Smart Select now. We talked about this last week. I don't know. Maybe they're gearing up to like, either they're trying to make a case for why they should keep them, or they're gearing up for the eventual like Google Messages thing where, they migrate you. It's like, it's time to leave Samsung Messages, guys. It's time. It's time. It's time to get going. You got to get going over to Google Messages. We're merging over with Google. It's a team effort over here. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to try to kill Smart Select. I hope not, because I know a lot of people like it.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yes.
For us S22, 23, 21 users, can we still use it as it's always been working?
For now, I mean, the S23 users are getting 6.1.1, so if they take that update, it'll be poof gone. Remember S22? We talked about this last week. We don't know fully yet, and we still don't actually, and it's a good update. We have a lot of S22 listeners, not just Tori, but there's a lot of people who started following me with the S22. And the answer is we still don't have a definitive answer from Samsung. Remember, the original press release doesn't even mention the S22 for 6.1.1, but there was also a statement from a couple of moderators on their community forum who do have inside knowledge of the updates, who said, oh yeah, the S22 series is getting some of the features. We just don't know when. So there's no time frame, and we also don't know which features. I mean, this might be a feature you don't want. Maybe you want to keep the old Smart Select.
I know, that's what I'm like, us S22 people.
Be like, we'll just take the old Smart Select. You can just keep the Galaxy Eye optimized version of Smart Select, This is an instance where I don't know, like, I mean, I get it. Galaxy, AI needs to be everywhere now, I guess, because people have to make money. But this is a place where I don't know that AI really needed to be part of Smart Select. No. Like, no one said, like, I have a hard time selecting the thing I need with the rectangle or the oval tool.
AI assistance.
Like, like if you want to crop a picture, like the S Pen was already there if you have an Ultra. The S Pen does a perfect job of cropping it. Like, I never thought, like, I need AI to make sure this is perfectly cropped for me. So this is a situation where it's like, I don't know that I really need AI in this particular feature. And maybe in this case, it got in the way of, because they probably couldn't figure out a way like for the AI to help with the GIF creation. So and also to work perfectly with that. So that might be what prevented it from making its way in. And they're like, we'll just cut it and then see if people don't cry about it. Then we could just, we don't have to worry about that. It's not a headache. But then people did cry about it. So now they got to figure out how to.
So now it is a headache.
Yeah. So now they got to figure out how they're going to like keep people happy and still keep the AI stuff in Smart Select. So that's pretty interesting. So I know some people are upset about that. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. There's this story here, which we've been talking about this for a while, and I think me and Tori have hit this story on the head. We are Samsung business model investigators, financial investigators over here. We've discussed many times on the podcast how Samsung has, since the Fold launch, started turning their business strategy into mimicking Apple in a lot of ways, in that they try to play it safe, less innovation, try to get bigger profit margins by reusing, the same design, not to the degree of Apple still, like I said earlier, but definitely to the degree where it's not like every year we're just going to blow up the design and make a completely new phone, because that's what they did for a long time. Like, until the Galaxy S6, like, every year the Galaxy S was like a completely new phone. Like, you never knew like what was going to happen when you watched the event. Since the Galaxy S6, like, it's been a consistent evolution. There's been some years where there were bigger jumps than others, but from like the S1 all the way up to the S6, like, it was like every year it's like, oh my gosh, what's Samsung going to do this year? They could do literally anything, and now it's not the case. So this story came out from a couple different people saying that Samsung is now completely targeting Apple and the iPhone as their competition, and they do not see Chinese Android manufacturers as being a competition segment for them. So what this basically means is Samsung is saying, and this leak came out from a couple of people, including I think Ice Universe commented on this originally, but basically what this means is Samsung is saying we're giving the middle finger to everyone says we need to innovate to compete with Xiaomi and Huawei and Vivo. They're like, we don't care because those companies are beneath us. We're Samsung. We sell a much larger volume globally than those companies. We don't really care too much about that. We only have one thing in our sights, and that's overtaking Apple in the markets where we don't already beat Apple. And of course, that includes the US, a big market where they don't. Yeah. They are way behind Apple here. Mm-hmm. Samsung is way ahead of Apple in other regions. They're on par or ahead of Apple in most European regions. They are, ahead of Apple in India. Mm-hmm. They are ahead of Apple in China, actually, and most of the Asian markets as well. But the U.S. And Canada, two markets where Apple has still got a stranglehold, and so they want to try to come for them. The firm doesn't want to look at any other brand as a competitor. The sales of all the Chinese Ultra flagships combined are less than Samsung's single Ultra model. So Sumit did a little research, and I believe that. I mean, he said here that that if you combine like Xiaomi's Ultra phone, Vivo's Ultra phone, all the Huawei, all those, the sales, they're still less than the S24 Ultra. Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe that. So you think about it in perspective, why would Samsung focus on competing with those brands when obviously they already stomp them into the ground by doing what they're already doing? Mm-hmm. You want to focus on what's going to get you, and this makes sense, the market share from the company that actually is beating you in a bunch of important regions. Make no mistake. I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm an American or live in the U.S. The U.S. is the most valuable region when it comes to tech budget, because there's a lot of people here who will just go out and buy a new phone every year. Yeah. There's a lot of disposable income and a lot of people who don't care about spending that disposable income. China has disposable income too. Trust me, I understand. China is wealthier than the U.S. and we owe them some money. I understand that in a lot of areas. But a lot of people in China, the culture is not to like go out and spend all your disposable income. So even people who have some, they're not as willing to like spend all that on necessarily smartphones. Mm. So the U.S. is a really big target market because a lot of people here, even people who don't have the disposable income, will go out. I mean, speaking of the iPhone launch this morning, lots of people probably went out and bought a, new $1,200 iPhone who probably can't really afford to buy a $1,200 iPhone. They'll buy it on like a payment plan. And that's not me saying, that people shouldn't enjoy their phone, but the fact is, if you're making $25,000 a year, is it a great idea to necessarily buy a $1,200 phone every year? If you need one every 3 years, because, obviously that's fine. But I mean, some people will buy them every year regardless. Mm-hmm. But in China and other markets, they don't do that. So, I mean, it's a valuable market. And so they're basically trying to reclaim not only the market here, but Korea has started to like turn a little bit more towards not only Apple, but also some of the other like Android manufacturers. And obviously Samsung very much hates that because Korea is their home market. Like they're like, Korean teenagers should not be using anything but a Samsung device. So, when TM Rowe goes outside and he sees like a 18-year-old Korean girl using like a Xiaomi phone or using an iPhone, he's going to be super upset about that. Because he's like every single person between like 16 and 35 in Korea, they need to have a Samsung device because that's Korea. I find this interesting. What do you think, Tori? I mean, we've talked about this at length, but I mean, does this make sense to you? What they're trying to do? What this report says?
Yeah, no, for sure. In order for them, I mean, because like I think we talked about this on the last podcast episode as well. I know we have been kind of seeing similar trends of them kind of making designs that are like less innovative to try to appeal more to what they're seeing maybe Apple users, because like they ship out the same phone every year essentially, and people are still willing to buy it.
Just put a new color on
it. Just different pastels of colors. And so Samsung has to be looking at that. But again, kind of what we talked about before, what this generation like is all about is like that marketing. And like I just feel like Samsung just hasn't been there in the U.S. front, and so I still think they can still be innovative and whatnot, but man, they just gotta get their products and stuff more accessible to consumers of this like generation. I think they would see the sales go up.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think this whole statement here that these various insiders mention, I think all of us, even people who don't have inside information to employees that are inside Samsung, can see this. And we've kind of analyzed it from the beginning that Samsung is really tailoring their strategy more in line with Apple to go after Apple. So basically, they're saying they're coming for Apple now. I mean, they've always been competing with Apple, but in some sense, Samsung was also always trying to be like the top Android manufacturer.
Yeah.
I think this is now Samsung saying, we are the top Android manufacturer. We know that. No one can challenge us. No one will.
Be the top.
No one will challenge us. So now we're like ready to let go of that. We don't have any interest because no one else can really compete for that spot. And now we want to be the overall number one smartphone seller in every possible region that we can, including Korea and North America are their two most important. One, because it's their home market. And then, like I said, the U.S. just so many people willing to spend disposable income on new smartphones. So obviously that has a chance to make them hundreds of billions of dollars every year because people just keep upgrading. And that's great for them because it makes them lots of revenue.
Yeah, and like, now that we've been kind of going to the movies and stuff more on, like, at least every time I've been in the last, honestly, since the Unpacked event, there's been commercials for Samsung.
Yeah,
all the time
we saw them in the previews every time.
Seen them before.
Yeah, it's that one where it's like, can you kick it? Yes, you can. Can you kick it? Yes, you can. I do like that commercial. So, they're working on their marketing because
they are.
Honestly, that's the first Samsung commercial I can even remember like as being catchy or something that stuck in my mind over the last like 4 or 5 years. They used to have some good ones. I remember the one that they had when Apple first came out with the notch. They made the one where the guy had his hair cut like a notch. Do you remember that?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, they had a commercial making that. I mean, that one, I think they should not do that. I don't want to spend forever talking about Apple versus Samsung marketing because we're going to talk about Apple in the second half. But I don't think they should make the ones that make fun of Apple because if you want to be on an even playing field with someone, you don't go around making fun of them because if you consider them their equal, right? You don't go on like trashing their work. That should be in anything.
Yeah.
And they've been doing less of it, but they still, and we'll talk about this in the second half as well, but they tweeted out, every year they tweet out during the iPhone event, like making fun of what Apple's announcing. They shouldn't be doing that.
No.
Like,
keep it classy.
You don't need to comment on it. Like, if you consider yourself better, then you don't need to comment on that. Like, you don't see, like, Coke tweeting out on their Twitter account, like, Pepsi's trash and, what's up with that blue can or whatever. They don't do that, right? Because they don't need to. Because, like, Coke and Pepsi, they know, like, they're equal level of premium. There's some people prefer each one, And, like, even if you are below another brand that you want to aspire to come over that on top of that brand, like, for instance, SammyGuru, for instance, I obviously would like to aspire to be above Sam Mobile. We would like to overtake them for that top spot. But I recognize they're above me, but I still don't trash Sam Mobile. I respect the work that they do. I'm not going to go out and trash my competitors. No matter where you are on the ladder, I don't think it's a good look to go out and trash your competitors. Yeah. But especially when you're in one of those two top spots, right? Like if I was, getting the same amount of traffic, for instance, as another website, I certainly wouldn't be trashing them then because like that makes me look bad and it doesn't really do me any good, right? Yeah. It's only like if you're way below someone and you don't have the talent to ever jump them, then you resort to like trashing them because you think that will do something like insecurities. Yeah. I mean, I would never trash someone who's performing better than me because I believe I have the talent to eventually take that top spot. And I don't want to sell myself short by just, running smear campaigns. So I would like to see Samsung stop doing that. I want to spot like this again. This is quick. I talked about it last week, but Sumit made this amazing article on everything you should know about One UI 6.1.1. I highlighted it last week, but it's so good. He keeps updating it. We continue to update it with all of the hidden features. He found some more features. I found some more features. So if you want to learn about all the features that you have in One UI 6.1.1 on the various phones that got it, it's also got the release dates for each of these individual ones. It's also got which models are going to be supported. All that information is there, and you can find it right there. Before we get into the second half, we still got a couple news stories. We're going a little longer today because last week we cut you guys a little short because of the comedy show. But before we get into the second half of the show, kick up those other news stories and talk a little bit about hardware and the the iPhone 16 event. Let's go ahead and take a brief break to hear from the sponsor of today's podcast. Today's episode of the SammyGuru podcast is brought to you by our partners at Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile has premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, and right now, for a limited time, they have one of their best deals of all time, where all of their plans are just $15 a month. That means that you can get their amazing unlimited premium wireless plan for 50% off the usual cost. All of Mint Mobile's plans come with unlimited talk and text, nationwide coverage, and mobile hotspot included as well. The great thing about Mint is they are completely online. You don't have to worry about any in-store sort of overhead. They basically give you all of the savings that they can by avoiding those costs. You can also get either an eSIM if you have a phone that supports that, like the Galaxy S24 Ultra or other modern Samsung phones, or if you prefer a physical SIM or need one, they will mail one to you as well. The great thing about Mint is you save a ton of money over the big wireless carriers, and they simplify your billing and also try to make sure that you have the correct plan for you. I've loved using Mint here in the Phoenix, Arizona area for almost the last 2 years. My family and I have switched over fully. We love their service. If you guys are interested in checking them out, go to trymintmobile.com/Springer. The link will also be in the show notes if you'd like to click on it that way and sign up. This is a limited time offer for the 50% off the unlimited plan, where all of their plans are $15 a month. So take advantage today. All right, guys, we are back. And a couple more quick news stories before we get into the hardware and then reactions to the iPhone 16 event. First of all, One UI 7.0 is apparently delayed. I talked about this a little bit, but a lot of leakers confirm this, including Ice Universe. People keep asking me, I'm talking about it, even though I don't really have a real update. The update is there is no update, but people keep asking me, like, when is that beta going to come out? When are we going to get it? Because obviously 6.1.1 was the first thing everyone was waiting for. Yeah. And then once we got that, people were like, well, when's the beta coming out? Because that's going to have way more new features than 6.1.1. Because this is a main platform. When it goes from 6 to 7 as the first number, that's a bigger update. The .1.1 means it's a smaller upgrade for software. So this is going to be massive. And Samsung apparently is taking a long time because, as we were talking about, and actually one of the questions that Tori has queued up for the Q&A, TM Rowe has been overseeing apparently the 7.0 release. Like he's really been like looking over the coding team's like shoulders, like, you guys need to change that piece of code there. Make sure you put a semicolon there. Yeah. He's really like worried, I guess, about this, and we'll talk a little bit about why that might be in the Q&A. But yeah, I mean, that's why it's taking so long. And also, Google pushed back the release of Android 15, which we talked about before, to the Pixel. So Android 15 is not even on the Pixel. I have Pixel 9 Pro, Pixel 9, whatever the heck this is called, Pro Fold. It's Pixel Fold 2. It doesn't have Android 15 yet because Google hasn't even rolled that out to their own phones. So yeah, 7.0 is delayed. I don't know when it will be out. My gut tells me it'll be out like the beginning of October or late September. So like we still have another like 2 or 3 weeks. I'm crossing my fingers they don't release it when I go to the Steelers-Raiders game because I'm going to be super upset. I'm going to write TM Rowe a letter. He's not going to be on my Christmas list because I do not want to have to take my camera equipment to Vegas for the weekend in case there's an emergency 7.0 beta release because I'll have to cover it. If it's already out and I've already covered it, then I can leave my camera at the office at home and go enjoy myself for a few days. But if it's not out, I'll bring my camera stuff. But I really hope by October 9th, they've pushed that out and I've already covered all the features so I can enjoy the time off with my wife. But my luck, they'll wait and it'll come out like the moment I get to Vegas or like in the middle of the game while I'm at the Steelers-Raiders game, they'll push it out and they'll be like, oh, 7.0 is out. It's breaking.
Yeah, like,
and then I'll have to
at the Raiders.
I'll have to live stream all of the 7.0 features in the middle of an NFL game. That'll be interesting due to the noise. We have a couple of other important leaks about the S25 series. It's rumored, we talked about this before, that the Galaxy S25 devices will all use the Snapdragon chips. So people are wondering what's happening with the Exynos 2500 because that's Samsung's next internal flagship chip. It's already been benchmarked on some of the benchmark websites like Geekbench. Apparently, if Qualcomm Snapdragon makes it into all of the S25 devices, Exynos 2500 is not dead, but it will be used with the Z Fold 7 and Z Flip 7 next year. So it's not like they're going to kill that internal chip. That'd be really stupid because they spent a lot of money to develop it. I wouldn't think that they would. I know everybody kind of wants the Snapdragon globally for their S25 device. So the good news is you're probably going to get it, it looks like, because Ice Universe confirmed it. And, you know, anything he says, like, I'm willing to risk whatever amount of money that I have, that it will be true. So I would think that everybody's going to get their wish finally. Galaxy S25 Ultra camera upgrade may not improve everything. So apparently, this is making some people angry. It's only going to get an upgraded hardware sensor for the ultra-wide camera. A lot of people wanted the 3x zoom camera sensor to be upgraded. but it looks like that's going to be kept the same as on the S24 Ultra. So personally, I agree. I tend to use my zoom camera more than I do my ultra wide. What about you, Tori? I'm curious. Do you use zoom over ultra wide? Do you know the difference, right? The ultra wide like gets you get a wider shot, where zoom. Which one do you think is more useful?
Me personally, I mostly use zoom. I don't really use the wide. It just seems like a better feature or a better tool or a quicker tool for me when I'm in the moment of trying to get a good shot.
Yeah, I mean, I would be curious. Like, I might put this poll. This might be next week's newsletter poll, because this is a good question, and I'd be curious about like user habits. I've never really heard anyone say, like on socials or in my comments, that they use ultra wide more than the zoom. I feel like most people would say zoom is more valuable.
Yeah,
it just seems intuitive to me. I mean, because like if you're far away from something and like on a sign you want to zoom in, you can see what's on it. If you have a good quality zoom, either digital or optical. Particularly for those of you who have families like I do, if you have kids or if you have pets, like capturing kids from far away, like doing various things. Like when we took Jonathan to the slide park and like he's up on a slide and I want to get like a shot of him coming down the slide, but I can't get like right at the bottom because there's other kids sliding down. I need to use my zoom lens.
Yeah.
Like ultra wide is only good for like artistic like landscape shots.
Yeah,
stuff,
I agree with that.
which is great, but like I don't take like 90% of the photos I take are of my kids or my family. I think that's true for most people, like their family, their friends, right? You're not taking like, unless you're like Ansel Adams or whatever, like you're some kind of photography savant, right? You're not out here just taking like landscape pictures of like the cityscape, or if you live in a rural area like the countryside, you're not doing that. That's not probably what you're using your phone for. But I'm curious what people think. I mean, of course, there's also the other use, Flossie Carter, for those of you guys who watch him on YouTube, Floss, he calls the ultra zoom, like the 100x zoom, scumbag zoom. Zoom in on some other things,
Yes.
I think we all know what we're talking about there, but that's not the purpose I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the shorter zoom, like the 3 to 10x.
Yeah.
That being improved would be bigger than the ultra wide. So I think people have a legitimate gripe to say that they're a little upset that the one they chose to upgrade was the ultra wide. I would prefer the zoom over the ultra wide, and I think most people probably would agree with that. The Galaxy S25 Ultra could offer marginally faster charging and satellite connectivity. So we've been waiting for Samsung to do satellite connectivity because Apple did it last year, Google did it this year on the Pixel, and so of course they had to do it too eventually. Satellite connectivity basically allows you to for emergency services and things like that. You can use it to
that was
message.
My question.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that?
Tori was wondering Tori's like,
just on my glaze.
Would I be able to like walkie-talkie with astronauts with this? Because Tori's like, that would be a really cool feature.
It would be.
That's not what you can do though. But
man.
If you could like turn on your phone and be like, is this the International Space Station? Am I talking to? Is this Captain Picard?
Yeah.
Now, if you could do that, that'd be a great feature. I mean, I think everyone would want to buy the phone.
Picard, the space.
Everyone would want to buy it.
Enterprise.
Everybody would want to buy it for that reason.
Oh, for sure.
I'd be using my phone all the time, be like, beam me up, Scotty.
I know.
But that's unfortunately not how it works. But it is a pretty useful safety feature. I think we can agree with that. Satellite, connectivity is a feature that has come to all these various phones. The other interesting feature, which probably interests people more than the satellite connectivity, it's highlighted here. This is a regulatory filing, which is where we get most of these leaks. Sumit found this, and we look in like the FCC filings where they have to file it with the government, what's on board. But the more interesting thing is we might have faster charging. So it appears that Samsung is going to have 15 volt, 3 amp charging, which is still 45 watts of power, but the S24 Ultra has 9 volts, 5 amp. And for those of you who didn't take a physics, electricity, and magnetism course,
which I'm taking right now, and I just covered.
You multiply these two numbers to get the power number, which is the wattage.
Yeah, the power.
But it is important that the first number is larger than the second. So 15 volt, 3 amp charging means that it's a more efficient charging. So the higher voltage means more efficient, which also usually means lower temperature while the phone is charging, which would mean probably faster charging speeds. Because those of you who know how phones work in practice, if the phone gets hotter, then it automatically starts charging slower to cool it down so it doesn't overheat. So higher voltage with the same wattage technically should mean that the phone will charge faster because the efficiency will be higher.
Yeah.
Now, Is it going to be a lot faster than if you actually increase the wattage number? Of course not. Increasing the power automatically means it charges faster, but sometimes at the expense of destroying your battery due to thermals and things like that. So all these people who are like, some of the Chinese phones, you might not know the story. Some of them charge like 100 watts. I think like Vivo is like 100 watts or 110 watts or something.
What?
But like, that's not good for your battery. I don't care what anyone says. Over time, if you keep the phone for more than like a year and a half, the battery is now going to be like 80% of its previous original capacity.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, you really need to be doing some battery management, like when you charge it. With Samsung phones, you don't need to do that. So the interesting thing here, and I was going to save this for the iPhone segment, but it's absolutely hilarious. And since we're talking about this, Apple, someone discovered this week, I saw this on X, in like the fine print, the iPhone 16 Pro actually has 15 volt 3 amp charging as well. The iPhones have never had more than 25 watts. So that means that it also has 45 watts. And Apple didn't even mention this in the keynote. Like, this is one of the biggest upgrades for the iPhone, and they didn't even talk about it.
Come on.
Like, they talked about all these things that probably almost no one cares about. And then they didn't talk about like what could potentially be one of the most useful upgrades, reasons to buy the phone. It now charges what is not going to be twice as fast, but like 1.5 times faster. Like, that's a big deal. The iPhone.
Remember, Jeff, they're going to buy it anyway.
That's true. I guess they're like, should we include this slide about bumping it up to 45 watt from 25 watts? And like, these people will buy it anyway. We don't need to tell them about that. They're like, probably they don't even know what 45 watts means. So, no need to complain. They don't even know what an extra 20 watts will matter. So we won't put that in the keynote. Just tell them about all the fancy AI features and about how Siri lights up the screen when they press the I button, and just show them the new color that's like the same gold as last year, but just 2 shades darker, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I need to spend $1,700 right now." And then just tell them they can wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to order it, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to be up at 4:45," and I was, unfortunately, not because I wanted to be, but anyway, this is very interesting. This actually does make me, leading into our iPhone discussion, somewhat excited about getting the iPhone now, because when I get my iPhone 16 Pro Max next Friday, I should have it, by the way, when we do the show next week. And we also have some exciting news at the end of the podcast. That's the thing to keep you kind of teaser there. Yep. We've got our first guest, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the podcast today when we wrap up the Q&A. But I should have the iPhone next week, but I can now plug it in and charge and do some charging tests to see how much of a difference the 15 volts 3 amps makes. Does it actually improve the charging speed over 9 volts 5 amps? It should, because of the efficiency, but this would let us get a preview of kind of how the S25 Ultra is going to improve in terms of its charging speed, because it's going to have the same specs. So very interesting, and does give me a reason to like be excited about getting the iPhone, because I wasn't that excited about it showing up next week, other than the fact that it's just new, but it doesn't do anything that my Samsung phones don't do, and I don't like using iOS, so it's like I need a reason to be excited about opening it.
And here it is.
So let's talk a little bit about the iPhone 16 event rewind discussion. We already talked a little bit, but let's talk about some of the other things. So there's essentially 2 or 3 reasons, I guess, to upgrade. So I have the upgraded specs here that they have just on my phone. The iPhone 16 and 16 Pro Max essentially have bigger display sizes. So from 6.1 and 6.7 to 6.3 and 6.9 this year. So you've got a 0.2 inch bigger display. They're almost just as thin and light, although they are slightly heavier by a few grams. Obviously, if you increase the display size, you have more material. It's going to be a little heavier. Even Apple can't make it, larger and still make it lighter unless you use like a crazy different material. And then, of course, also the resolution has gone up a little bit. You've got on the 16 Pro Max 2868 by 1320, which is up from the 2796 by 1290 from last year. That's just a function of raising the display size, of course, again. And the other thing is they've got a big battery boost. So the battery life is rated for 27 hours of video playback and 22 hours of stream video playback and 85 hours of audio playback for the 16 Pro. And the 16 Pro Max is up to 33 hours of video playback and 29 hours of stream video playback. However, Apple never mentions like regular daily use. That's what I hate about their battery life. It's like they tell you how long it'll last if you just continuously play a video. Who turns on a YouTube video on their phone and just leaves it there all day? Yeah. That's not how people use their phones. So, and what's really interesting about this is that while the battery, life does appear like it's going to be better, they also didn't mention the charging. Why, like we said, why didn't they mention the upgraded charging? It has 45 watt, 15 volt 3 amp. Like, you'd think they'd mention that with the battery. Like, oh yeah, we've got bigger battery. We also have better charging. Those two things together would be like, that'd be enough to get a lot of people to buy. But I guess since tech audience is not their target demographic, they're just like, we'll just mention the battery's bigger, because people understand that. Like, people don't know what wattage means. It's like,
there's always
battery, bigger, last longer.
And larger display and lighter phone.
That's like the
3 key things.
They're like, you last longer, have a great day. It's got the new A18 Pro chip, and of course, Apple's chips are incredibly fast. But here's the thing, and this is a discussion I think I always have when I talk about Apple. I use a MacBook Pro as my main laptop. We've talked about that before. That's because on Apple's laptops, they have the best processors, but they don't restrict what I can do with it. Mac OS lets me do whatever I want. Guess what? The iPhone, they got the most powerful processor. It's better than Snapdragon for most tasks, but they don't let you do anything. iOS is locked down. No multitasking features, no customization features, no S Pen. The processing power is all wasted. Like, it's basically like if you went out, if you went out and bought like a Lamborghini or a Rolls Royce. My favorite car, if I could buy any car I want, the Rolls Royce Cullinan SUV, $600,000 SUV. If you went out and bought that car, but all you did was park it in your driveway and drive it to the grocery store once a week, and that's all you ever did. You never went anywhere else in that car. Why would you buy a $600,000 Rolls Royce to drive it back and forth to the grocery store? You could buy a $25,000 basic SUV from any company and do the same thing.
Corolla.
Like, you're not going to any events. Like, you don't have anyone to impress. Why are you buying a $600,000 SUV? Even if you could. So it's like, why do I care that I have an A18 Pro chip that's faster than the chip that's in Android phones, but the Android phone can still do like 100 times more stuff because of the software?
Yeah.
Honestly, if Apple would make iOS 18 so that it actually has productivity features and gaming features and a lot of other stuff that you can do with Android, they would have a real case of, being a quality opponent. But I mean, until they do that, it's a moot point. They've got a new camera, and guess what? They've got a 48 megapixel ultra wide camera. They improved the ultra wide, so you can see the pattern. Samsung's going to do that because Apple did. It has 4K, 120 frames per second, Dolby Vision video recording, also in slow mo. These things I do care about because I mainly use my iPhone for B-roll video because I don't like to use it as a phone. I just use it as a video camera once I do my camera comparisons. So these are pretty cool features. The two camera features, to me, are like the most useful. But it's funny because, iPhone users, like whenever Android phones started getting like high megapixel ultra wides, like when Samsung did it a few years ago, they're like, oh, that's just a gimmick. No one cares. And now the iPhone 16 Pro has it. And they're like, oh, that's the greatest feature I've ever seen. 48 megapixel ultra wide. I'm going to go out there and just like take pictures of the landscape all the time.
Everything.
I'm going to be shooting 4K 120 frames per second video all the time, even though the videos are going to be like 30 gigabytes. So people who, if they bought the base storage model, they're going to run out of storage after like 4 videos. But, I mean, these people just like, they bash Android for adding features, and then when Apple eventually does it, they're like, oh, this is the greatest feature ever. We needed this feature.
Take my money.
Of course, they added the new Desert Titanium color, which I did buy on my Pro Max. It's the gold that's like 2 shades darker than the old gold they used to have. Why it's interesting, I don't know. It's just a different shade of gold. It almost looks kind of like a brownish gold. And then, of course, the other feature is a bunch of Apple Intelligence features. But guess what? Here's the kicker. Unlike Samsung, who actually released most of the Galaxy AI features on the S24 Ultra when they first rolled out at Galaxy I, Apple's not rolling out most of the AI features for like the next 3 months. So you're going to buy a new iPhone 16 Pro. You're going to get it next week on September 20th. You're going to unbox it, and then they're going to say, well, thanks for giving us, $1,400. We'll go ahead and get those new features to you for this new phone by December. So don't expect to use all the fancy new software features for Apple Intelligence, their AI, when you unbox your iPhone next week if you bought one, because they're not coming. I do have it because I'm running the beta on my iPhone 15 Pro, which we actually use for B-roll in the podcast. It does a good job. The iPhone does a good job for video. If someone said to me, should you buy the iPhone as a video camera that can also do other stuff? I would say, yeah, it's a good video camera.
Is a good description,
Is it a good
Jeff?
phone?
That is a very good description.
Is it a good phone? Not really. Is it a good video camera that can also do a few other things? Then yeah. Like, if honestly, if people ask me, like, if they're YouTubers, like, what device should I buy as an intro camera? Get an iPhone Pro model. I mean, they are great at video. They're better at Android phones than video, most Android phones. That's the one thing that they excel at. And Apple puts a lot of focus on that. And they are, but they're not great phones. They're a great video camera that you can use as a professional camera, but you can do a couple other things like connect to the internet. But in terms of like notification management, getting any work done, actually playing games, like 90% of the stuff I do with my actual phone, the iPhone is pretty bad at doing it. That's how I would summarize the iPhone. So people always ask, do you like iPhones? I do as a video camera. I just don't like it as a phone. People are like, Jeff, you hate iPhones. No, I don't. I like iPhones.
I
just not for the purpose that Apple created it for. Like as a portable video camera that also will happen to let me check the internet or send a message if I need to. It's great. I wanted to just share this one. I posted this over on X earlier. I posted this over on X. It's a funny meme used because I talked about Back to the Future earlier. Check this out, Dory. It says, literally every time Apple releases anything, Android users, hey, I've seen this one. What do you mean you've seen it? It's brand new. From the first Back to the Future. They're watching they're watching the Jackie Gleason show, and Marty McFly is like, hey, I've seen this one. It's a rerun. And they're like, what's a rerun? How do you mean you've seen it? It's brand new. And that's exactly how I feel every time I see the new iPhone. Like I was sitting there listening to them talking about like 48 megapixel ultra wide camera. I'm like, man, I had that like 3-4 years ago. It's a cool feature that I've had for a long time. So it's not that interesting to me, I mean, unless you like a brand new, like if you want a shade of gold that's two darker shades than the previous gold one they list, I mean, if that's what you call innovation, then you should buy an iPhone. But I mean, I don't call that innovation. I mean, the gold doesn't look bad, but like releasing a gold, like if they had released like a dark orange iPhone Pro titanium, I'd be like, that's pretty cool. I mean, even though I still don't think that's innovation. But I mean, releasing gold, they've had gold iPhones for, everyone's all hyped about it. It's already sold out, by the way. The Desert Titanium, of course, because they just go buy whatever, So anyway, not really that impressed. What do you think, Tori, about these new iPhone features? Anything that, makes you think that you need to go get an iPhone today? Trade in your S22 Ultra?
No, not at all, man. Not at all. If you love them, you're going to buy it. I don't, anyone who has an iPhone who are looking to upgrade, they're going to buy it. I don't foresee them really taking in new people unless everyone else in their friend circle are already using iPhone and they want to be able to use FaceTime and obviously have a video camera.
Exactly. Yeah, if you need a video camera, honestly, you got to think about it, like from a video camera perspective, not to harp on it, it's actually cheap for a good video camera. I mean, because a real like professional YouTube video camera is going to cost you a lot of money. Like my main video camera over there, the Sony A7 IV, the camera plus the lens costs like $5,000. So if you spend only $1,200 on an iPhone, it makes pretty similar quality video. Now, I mean, for macros and stuff, it's not. I mean, that's why it costs $5,000 versus $1,200 on the phone. Yeah. not for macros, but for most of the stuff you could do with YouTube, it's just as good. Plus, you can use it for other things. If you look at it from that value proposition, it's not bad. But if you want the absolute best phone that you can buy that does a lot of stuff and allows you to get work done and play games, it's not the phone you should buy. That's just my opinion. Speaking of games, that's a great segment because we're going to talk about one of the other big pieces of news this week. Because, you can play games on your Samsung phone, but what if you want to play console quality games? We have some announcement this week from Sony, who used to sell Android phones, but now they mainly focus on their TV and PlayStation business. Mm-hmm. PlayStation Pro, PS5 Pro, coming up for pre-order later this month. What day was it, Tori? You told me the day. I
think it was like the 29th. Here, I'll just double check from my...
Yeah, so the PS5 Pro is coming out. I believe it's $699 is the price. It's pretty. They jacked the price up a bit.
$699.99.
$699.99, and these are going to be crazy hard to find.
They
just
will be
kind of like the iPhone. People just go out and buy these at launch day. They don't even read the specs. Don't even know if they need it. There's like, my friends are getting one. I need it. I got to have the PS5 Pro. A little unfortunate for me because I just got
September 26th.
September 26th. I just got around to buying a PS5.
Yeah, you did.
Like 5 months ago. And I've been playing it and enjoying it, but now I knew this was coming. So, I mean, of course, I'm 38 and obviously I've got kids, so I don't have a ton of time to play games, but it would have been nice if I should have waited to buy the PS5 Pro. I mean, I still could buy one. I'm in a good position where I could afford to buy one and probably sell the other one. I probably could sell the PS5 for maybe $300, $250.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Easily.
And so I think Well, actually, I don't know. I should ask you, Tori, because you paid more attention to this. Are the games backwards compatible with the regular PS5? I would think they would be. Like,
Oh,
you can play...
yeah. Well, so the thing, and which is why it's so controversial, is for the PS5 Pro, there is no disk drive. You can buy a disk drive, but it is separately sold. So
How much is that?
That I don't know. I don't know the price on that, but
It's probably $100.
Probably, yeah.
Let's look it up.
Yeah.
I got to know now.
Yeah,
the cash grab
people
here.
are very upset about that. And also the stand is also sold separately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The PS5 Pro disk drive looks like it's going to be $80.
Okay.
$80. That's the rumor anyway. Yeah, $80. That's what it says. Mm-hmm. That's like Apple level cash grab where they're like, we don't put a charger in the box, and then the one that you need is $70. I'm like, whoa, man, calm down.
Yeah.
And like whenever I buy, like I said, I use a MacBook. Whenever I go to the Apple store, like if I need to buy a spare charger or something for my MacBook Pro, like the laptop charger is like $180. I'm like, Jesus, man, wow, what the heck? How can the charger cost that much?
Right.
I mean, it has a cool cable and the design looks nice, but I could get a much cheaper charger from Anker or something. What the heck? That's a lot of money, man. Not including the disk drive and or the stand.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty big cash grab.
It does. So
what's the
really
feature?
upset.
The feature is that now you can play games in 8K. Is that what it is?
Yeah. It's going to be 8K. They also have. Let's see here. I got to pull up. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's going to have a larger GPU and AI-driven upscaling.
Okay.
But
well, I mean,
no
I guess
drive.
here's my question though, because to tie this back to Samsung a little. I mean, I don't mind talking about tangentially related stuff occasionally on the show because obviously it's a part of we don't we like cover Samsung, but we have other interests too. But I mean, here's my question: how many people? I have one, but I mean, I cover Samsung stuff and I do tech for a living on YouTube. I have an 8K TV. How many people actually have an 8K TV that can take advantage of the 8K? Because if you buy it and you don't have an 8K TV,
you might as well just keep the PS.
You might as well just keep a regular PS5. That's why I don't understand. What was the other features aside from the 8K?
And just a larger GPU and the AI-driven upscaling, whatever that means.
I think that means basically if you have 4K TV, it's going to try to upscale it to 8K using AI, but it's not going to look as good. I mean, the main benefit of buying it would be if you have an 8K TV. Mm-hmm. But 8K TVs are still pretty expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, mine was an investment that I bought from Samsung. I don't remember how much it was. I got a good deal. Obviously, because I do stuff with Samsung's PR and things. I mean, I got a good deal on it, but I think the retail price of the 8K TV I bought was $8,000. It's not cheap. Yeah. I didn't pay $8,000. I paid like half or less than half of that, but I paid closer to what the 4K price of the equivalent one is. I have the 85-inch 8K TV, but it's not cheap. So I think most people probably don't have one if they go buy the PS5 Pro.
Yeah, true.
So I just wonder, my question is, I mean, obviously, I guess I need to get one since I have the 8K TV. But if you don't have the 8K TV, what's the huge difference? Like, we'll have to see. Like, we'll see when people get them and review them. Like, is the upscaling really going to matter if you have a 4K TV? It'll be interesting to see what the difference is between them. As someone who doesn't review game systems, obviously I don't. I'm just saying that I know 8K TVs don't have a huge adoption rate.
Yeah.
Because Samsung makes them, but they don't sell a high volume of that. I know that because I know a lot about Samsung's business model, even outside of mobile. They don't sell a huge volume because they're so expensive. I mean, the 8K one that I have is $8,000. That's like the cheapest one they sell. Mm-hmm. I mean, their 8K TVs go all the way up to like $20,000.
Yeah.
I mean, like they have one that's like 98 inches. I think that's like $50,000. Mm-hmm. There are people who have crazy money who don't care, so they buy those, but not a lot. Not your average person is buying $50,000 8K TV. Buying. So we'll see. Let us know what you guys think about PS5 Pro. Yeah. I mean, it seems very expensive though, considering if you want to buy the disc drive, it's actually $780 plus tax. Yeah, plus you're looking at about $860, almost $1,000 for a console that if you don't have an 8K TV, I'm worried about how valuable that will be of an upgrade. I guess since I have it, maybe I'll get one and sell my PS5, and then I can talk about the experience. Because I mean, I'll play Tekken on it. If Tekken's gonna play in 8K, that'd be cool. And I'd love to play some Tekken 8 in 8K.
Yeah, that would be.
Maybe I can have Tori over. We can play some 8K.
Yeah,
Tekken 8. I mean, it's Tekken 8. You got to play it in 8K.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
We'll give it a try with the 8K.
The Iron Fist tournament.
App of the week, real quick. Gallery Labs. I don't even know if you know this, Tori. So this is another one where it's like, let's see if Tori's ever heard of this. So inside your gallery app, if you open gallery on your phone.
All right, so I'm going to go to gallery.
Yeah, so you guys might know this if you follow my channel. Samsung has a hidden menu called Gallery Labs inside of gallery. And you go to the gallery itself and tap down here where they got the 3 little lines. If you go to the settings, scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says About Gallery. If you tap on About Gallery, and then you're going to do is tap on the gallery text and the version number repeatedly. You got to keep doing it. It's going to say now enabling Gallery Labs. You got to tap on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, once you do that, if you go back to the previous menu, at the bottom, you're going to see this Gallery Labs menu. If you scroll all the way down, it's going to say Gallery Labs. Did you see it?
Okay, it says latest version already installed. Okay. Do not see it yet.
Let me see real quick.
Yep.
You may have to, let's see if we can get this for Tori. You may have to say you want Gallery Labs to be turned on once you actually tap it. Or maybe, there he is. Oh, it says one more. Gallery Labs will be enabled. We didn't tap enough times.
Yes.
You really have to go in on it. So now it's at the bottom there. So if you go into Gallery Labs, there's actually some new features here in One UI 6.1.1. Tori, you have the old version, so you can see the features that were there before, and they removed a couple features. So I made a video on this that I'll be posting next week. They now have the show sticky date and data and location, the slideshow with selected items, which allows you to select some items and then create a slideshow just from like some pre-selected photos inside the gallery. And then they also have the hamburger menu in the bottom. So what this does is it lets you move the little 3 dots menu for your photos to the bottom. So if you tap on a photo, like let's go here, tap on a photo, the 3 dots menu will be moved to the bottom here. If you look on yours, if you go to a photo, if that option is not turned on, the photo is going to have the 3 dots menu at the top instead of at the bottom. So if you just go to one photo, see how the 3 dots are at the top?
Oh, so then I move it
so you
down.
can move it down to make it easier for one-handed use. So there's a couple of new features in here. I just wanted to bring them to people's attention.
Cool.
They also removed one feature. If you go to your Gallery Labs, you should see a feature called Remote Gallery inside Gallery Labs. This was a feature Samsung had proposed that would allow you to essentially view your photos from another device on the same network. Yeah, so like you could be on your Galaxy Book 4 Edge that I have over here.
Yeah.
And you'd be able to like remotely go into your phone on any other device that's on the same Wi-Fi, even like an iPad, and view your photos in the gallery. But this feature never worked ever since they put it in the labs. Labs are basically experimental features that they're trying, so you can never expect they're going to work forever.
Yeah, but, I see the little...
there's a warning.
sign.
I mean, you can ignore the warning. The warning is like, oh, no, your phone's going to die. Not really. I mean, it basically, something might not work forever, though, because if you try it, this stuff they're testing, if they don't like the feature, they just delete it and they don't give you a warning. So they're not making any warranties that it'll stay forever. But, of course, as we saw with Smart Select, they just delete features without telling you anyway, so it doesn't really matter. They'll just do it from anywhere. They don't care if it's in the labs menu or not.
Samsung.
They're like, we'll just delete it from the main menus too. But that's disappointing. I was hoping that would work eventually. They put it in there last year, the remote gallery, and then they just took it out and didn't tell anybody they were going to take it out. But that's been removed, as well as a couple of other options that were less popular. But if you guys want to play with some features that are hidden in One UI 6.1.1, these are kind of buried in the lab section, so they're not in the changelog, but I did make a video and I'll have it out sometime next week. I forgot to mention, maybe I'll talk about this a little bit next week since I skipped over it and we should really get to the Q&A, but I have the Pixel Watch 3 XL in the house right here. This is the new Pixel Watch, paired it to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Just came in this week. It's a very cool watch. They used to have a really small face on it. It's like tiny, the last Pixel Watch, and I couldn't use it. So now they made the face bigger, so it is usable. It's still not nearly as big as, in fact, we can kind of hold it up. I mean, I can hold it up next to Tori's Galaxy Watch Ultra. You guys can see the size kind of difference. We can kind of hold them up here. Yeah, I mean, because it doesn't have the casing around the side, they're similar, but the Watch Ultra is still bigger, and it's going to be a little more rugged. So, like, if you want, I mean, honestly, the thing about this watch is, while I like it, the bezel is like completely exposed. You know, you can see like it's all glass. There is no real like durable casing like on the Ultra.
Yeah,
you can
this
see
is
it
real nice.
Yeah, you can see it just from looking at this one. Like, if you bang this into like a door or something, like you have a good chance of cracking. This is all glass right here. That's all the screen. So you have a good chance of cracking this one. I've already banged into a few things, got a couple scratches. I only had it for 4 days. So while this one looks elegant and it does look good on the wrist for sure, nice. The durability is questionable. Like if you're doing stuff, even if you're like me and you're busy and you're going in and out of doors and running around all day doing stuff, not, you know, you don't even need to be mountain climbing or snowboarding or whatever, just doing regular daily stuff like as a job, you're probably going to scratch this up. And hopefully not crack it, but I'll try to do a full comparison to this, to the Galaxy Watch Ultra, because you can use this with your Samsung phone. So it is an option for you. It doesn't have to be used with a Pixel device because it's any Android phone. So if you're interested and you like the design of this better than the Galaxy Watch, I'll probably do a full comparison video, and we'll probably try to talk a little more about, because that might be a 20, 30-minute segment. We can get into some fitness tracking, because I know we talked about the fitness tracking with the Watch Ultra. It was not as accurate. No. I'm doing some testing to kind of see if this one's better. It uses Fitbit, which is built in on the Pixel Watch, to kind of do the step tracking. So otherwise, let's jump into that Q&A, Tori. You got a couple questions queued up. Let's hear those questions.
Yeah, I do. Let me get out of Gallery Labs. All right. So, first off, we have Galaxy Nexus giving us really good comment about the show so far. But moving into his question, he's asking, do you guys think if Samsung loses more ground in the foldable market next year with the Z Fold 7, Flip 7, it could mark the end of TM Rowe's tenure as the head of their mobile department? I've heard he's been a little bit more hands-on as of late since the July Unpacked event, and I'm wondering if he isn't feeling the pressure.
So this is a good question as usual. Another question kind of about the business side of Samsung, which we do like to talk about a lot on this podcast. I enjoy talking about the business side of mobile. I think TM Rowe is under a lot of pressure, particularly because, you know, he's the leader of the mobile, but he's not the end-all, be-all leader of Samsung. We've talked about this before. Like, Samsung is a massive conglomerate. Yeah. They do TVs, refrigerators, dishwasher, everything.
Name it.
Including the kitchen sink, literally.
Yes.
They sell kitchen sinks. So, you know, he's under pressure from the president of Samsung Electronics, which is his boss. And, you know, he wants, obviously, innovation and to really kind of take over Apple, as we talked about earlier. We talked about this earlier as well. He's overseeing One UI 7 directly. Like, he's in the lab and they're talking to the people like, you guys got to be fixing this and that. And that's why it's taking longer to get the software. I think the S25 Ultra and 7.0, 7.1, which will probably be the version on the S25, because they usually do 7.0 releases on the old phones, and then the new S line gets like a little upgrade with some new features. That will be a make or break moment, I think, for him, because a lot of people rate him very negatively compared to DJ Co, which we talked about last week and comparing the two, just because DJ Co is more innovative. So I do think he's on the hot seat, just like, you know, football coaches when they're losing teams losing. Like, you got to start winning or you're going to get fired.
You got to start winning some games.
It's like, you got to start winning some launches. You got to start like showing some massive numbers, because like he's been steady, but Samsung, you know, is kind of like Alabama, like mine and Tori's favorite football team. We don't want to win 9 games and go to a bowl game. We expect to win national championships every year.
Yeah.
Like, Samsung is not TCL, you know, they're not LG. They don't expect to win 9 games, you know, metaphorically. They expect to win every time. They want to be on top of the smartphone sales chart. So I do. I think, what do you think, Tori? I think Samsung fans in general are growing tired of the complacency. So I think even though they want to play it safe, I think they need to bring some innovation, you know, and I think the Z Fold Special Edition, which we talked about last week with all those upgrades, maybe that could be a big chance for him.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think we talked about this maybe on like the second or third episode of our podcast here. But what people know Samsung for is that innovation in the phone game. And it really has just been a very consistent, like, all right, you have the series, now you have the foldable, we're just going to keep it moving, not really any changes. And they're kind of focusing on their, user ability, which is what Apple focuses a lot on. But
even though Apple's phoning it in there because they're releasing features 3 months after the new phone. So
yeah.
Apple's trying to see how much little they can do to still make phones. They're like, maybe we can just say the features will release in 12 months, and then by the time we get to the next one, they'll forgot about it.
Yeah,
we can just sell them the next phone.
Yep. And so, like kind of what you said, though, I just think they're probably not seeing as much number growth, especially you have this wide range of, you have this really expensive foldable phone, and then you have just the S series, and they're just probably not getting any new people already on the Samsung train. And so he's probably feeling some pressure of, hey, you got to get, I think it's a combination of, you need to get more people buying phones, which I think is why we're seeing more commercials. I think there's probably, if he's really managing and overseeing the new One UI, there's probably a lot of pressure on increasing usability, and there's probably a lot of pressure on him just to keep the phone market going in general. So I do think there's probably a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, and I think, too, we talked about this on another episode as well, but I think he's also under pressure to start getting poach Apple users to the foldable phones before Apple releases their foldable phone. Mm-hmm. And we've heard that could be 2026, so he's only got one more launch maybe before Apple releases a foldable. Could be 2027, but he might as well assume 2026 because once Apple releases a foldable iPhone, like all the Apple users are not coming to Samsung.
No.
So you need to poach them now so that you can say, look, we've got this cool piece of hardware that you want that you can't get from Apple before Apple starts putting that out. Because Apple, like I said before, one thing they will do is they'll have polished hardware when they release a flip, because they're going to release the flippable iPhone first. That's the foldable they're going to do. They won't have much of a crease, I promise you. Apple's waiting until they can. That's why they're waiting. I guarantee you. Apple, they probably looked at the flippable phones and they're like, we'd love to do it, but that crease looks unsightly, and that's just not the Apple way. They're all about like clean design.
Yeah.
The same design. Once they come up with a design, they just recycle it. But when they introduce something new, which is like every 15 years or so, it's clean, and they make sure it's refined to the point where there's no big like glaring issues, especially like from a visual standpoint. So Samsung needs to try to get those, and I think TM Rose under a lot of pressure from the head of Samsung Electronics. Like, we got to get some of those Apple people over here while we have this hot piece that Apple doesn't have, and they don't have foldables.
They want it. Like, I mean, my friends who I talk to who have iPhones, they're like, we really like the fold and the flip. We think it's so cool that you can do that. It's just that I'm not willing to give up FaceTime or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But I do think they are on the right path of, again, trying to have like those catchy commercials, trying to have like a younger, because like in all the commercials that they've shown, like it's been like a younger, like probably someone in their early 20s or in their 20s, trying to capture that. Because if they can get them on the fold,
I almost think that they should show in some of their ads alternatives that you could use instead of FaceTime.
Oh, yeah.
And iMessage on Android. What do you think about that? Doesn't that be a good strategy?
Yeah, actually, I think
that.
so. That's what people care about.
Yeah, like if they showed, like, because Google Meet is the main like default video, and like if you showed people like you can have the same great experience with Google Meet, and if Samsung and Google partnered to make it basically, I'm not saying they should make exactly, but make the UI look similar to FaceTime, you could make those people comfortable.
Yeah.
And then like RCS is already now on the iPhone, so basically you could say, well, the iMessage features are going to be almost the same, and a lot of them are. If they could work to make those even more similar, Samsung could sell that, and now you've got the great hardware, plus you've got some features that make people comfortable. Because I do think iMessage and FaceTime, people don't realize, like, for the younger people, that's like a big deal. I mean,
it is a very big deal.
To me, it's hard for like people my age. So if you're my age, even Tori's age, but for like the 20-year-old students now, like that I taught at the university, they like don't want to be a green bubble, and they don't want to be the person that's like holding up the group video call because they don't have FaceTime. They don't want to be left out. So the ability to show people some of the workarounds, and there are some. I've made some on my channel, but they're not being advertised by Samsung. You have to actually seek that out yourself. And unfortunately, most of the Apple users who would transition over, they're also a little scared because they're not that techie, and they think, oh, well, if I go to Android, I need to learn more. I need to be more technical, which I think is like a stigma. Like Android's like, you need to know more. And not really. I mean, there's a lot more you could do if you want, but Samsung is easy to get onboarded. They just need to make that kind of out there, put that out there for people.
No, I think so too. So Samsung, if you're listening, listen to Jeff. He has some good ideas.
TM he's listening to this for sure. He's got open his Galaxy Z Fold 6, and he's like, oh, he's got it right here.
Yeah.
And he's got the translate up, so he's translating this into Korean right now.
Yeah.
He's just got the podcast up on YouTube. On the other side, he's got the interpreter. He's using his features from 6.1.1 to get real-time listener mode, translating it to Korean. So you're welcome. You're welcome, TM. We're trying to keep your job afloat, man.
Yeah, man.
Hey,
Here
I
at
like DJ
SammyGuru.
Co, but I'm trying to keep your job. I know, obviously, you only make like $20 million a year. You need the money. Obviously, you probably don't have enough money yet. So we're trying to help you out. Anyway, what was the other question, Tori?
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Benny New. Again, we're trying to figure out exactly.
Trying to piece this one together. I have a couple of ideas, but I didn't know exactly. So
this is I can make a part of a photo a clip. Where can I find these on the S24 Ultra?
So I have two guesses. The first guess is he may be talking about the fact that on the new version of One UI 6.1.1, if you have a photo that has like a person in it, like here's Jonathan today roaring at me at the museum. I told him to act like a dinosaur. He's outside the Natural History Museum. One thing I think he might be talking about is if you want to like clip out a person and make it like a sticker, or you can share it, you can long press on the image. And it will allow you, once you long press, it'll take the person and pull the person out. And you can now turn this into a sticker. You can save as a sticker, copy it, share it. You can also save as an image, or you can edit it. So if you want to save it as a sticker, now the next time you do your messages, you can insert like that little thing as a sticker. That's one thing. I think he might be talking about that, and see, you can actually make different sticker styles, vintage, cartoon. Actually, I've never seen this before. Is this new? I'm discovering new features here on the podcast. I guess I might have to make a video about this because I'm going to screenshot this. I've never seen it. I didn't know they had different sticker styles. This might be a new feature in 6.1.1. I'd not tried to make a sticker yet. So, well, hey, that might be another video coming next week. The other thing that I could think that he might be talking about is if you have a photo and you open this inside of the gallery, you can actually create, if you swipe up on the photo, there will be an option there on certain photos to create what's called live effect. Do you see live effect there? If you tap on live effect, what it does is it adds like a motion effect to the photo. And so it looks like the photo is like panning around the environment. You see how it's moving?
Yeah.
Like it adds like a moving photo. So it adds like a motion effect to your photo, and then you can save that as a copy, or you can share it to social media. So I also have a video on this because it's part of the new 6.1.1 features. Those are my two guesses. If I didn't answer what you were asking, Benny, you can certainly reach out and try to clarify. But those are my two guesses of what he was talking about. Either clipping the images from a photo and like making it a sticker or a separate image, or doing the live effect. And so both of those I have videos on. I'll put them in the show notes, answer that question for you guys. I think those are the questions, right? Those are the ones we had.
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely keep giving us great questions. We love the Q&A.
Yeah, just put them in the comments.
The more questions we get, I'm always happy to reserve more time for Q&A and do a little less hardware some weeks. Because, I mean, I always have new hardware, but if it's not Samsung specific, I don't have to talk about it. Like this, I want to talk about it, but we don't have to if we have more Samsung questions. I want to close the show, though, by talking about a couple things. One, next week, hopefully we'll have the new podcast orientation with the sign set up at least. We're going to have that. Two, next week, we're going to have our first guest on the podcast. And I'm trying to work out the time with him, but he's already agreed to do the show. Max Weinbach, a lot of you guys probably know him. He has about 250,000 followers on X. He was basically a Samsung guy completely about 8 years ago. He was only 16 years old 8 years ago. He started doing Samsung leaks when he was 16. Kind of blew up. He did a lot of stuff with Samsung firmware. And then he kind of grew up and got other interests and started dabbling in other tech. He went to college, got his degree, and now he's an analyst actually for a company that like evaluates tech products, and he has a pretty cool job. He is an iPhone user as well now. He uses both Android and iOS. We won't hold it against him. Since it is iPhone week, I wanted to talk to someone who is an avid iPhone user, because obviously I have one, but mine mainly is only used for video. I don't use it on a daily basis. I want to hear what he has to say and his take on iOS 18, Apple Intelligence, Samsung versus Apple, since obviously He used to be an all Samsung guy. His thoughts on that should be an incredibly interesting podcast. So I'm really happy to get him as our first guest. I listened to some of the other ideas because I asked people on X like who they wanted to see. He was one of them. There's a couple other guys I reached out to. So we're going to start having more regular guests going forward. Not that me and Tori aren't interesting, but I think it's time to start mixing it up with guests because podcasts are all about guests, and now you guys kind of know us pretty well, I'd say, and we've kind of settled into doing this as a pair. So now it'll be interesting to get someone else's thoughts on all this stuff we talk about at Samsung every week. Otherwise, anything else, Tori? Yeah.
No, just our catchphrase.
I think that's about it. I mean, the only thing left to do this week is to remind you guys to never stop expanding your galaxy.